Alright, about to get started. Alright, looks like things are working. Audio is good. Alright, so this is probably gonna be a pretty quick stream, honestly. And just to be clear, I don't commonly do anamorphic within SYNTHEYES. I actually don't handle it too often myself, because at TrackVFX we typically have 3DE users do distortion. Undistortion in SYNTHEYES, it's not the best. It's okay, where is it? Okay, I'm in an older version of SYNTHEYES. So SYNTHEYES only has this value here. If we look at it here, this is Quadratic Distortion. Quadratic Distortion is nowhere near enough what is typically required to get an accurate distortion for most lenses. Most lenses have a little bit more distortion on the edge of the corners, so where you kind of maybe heard the term mustache distortion and all this other stuff. So yeah, quadratic isn't enough. Also, 3DE lets you do like individual quadrants of the distortion, and it has all these crazy other parameters that you can work with. SYNTHEYES, at least prior to versions 1903, does not have enough parameters to get an accurate distortion. If I launch, well, I'm going to launch a new SYNTHEYES just to show what I'm talking about. Okay, so new SYNTHEYES here for this is 1905. I refuse to go any higher. I don't like new SYNTHEYES. So here, if we go to calculate distortion, we don't just have quadratic anymore. We have more. If I click more, you can see now we have quadratic, cubic, quartic, and a few other anamorphic options here. I'm not going to be using new SYNTHEYES, even though this shot has a anamorphic lens adapter on it. Oh, by the way, this footage was provided by a viewer. Thank you, Brian. And it was a fun shot to play with. So, yeah, so I'm not going to be using new SYNTHEYES. Oops, I just kind of closed every other window by shaking that. All right. So I'm not going to be using new SYNTHEYES, even though it has the options for distortion. SYNTHEYES does not solve distortion very well. Nor do I believe that SYNTHEYES 1903 and up solve very well at all. But that's just me, because I don't understand the new method of solving. This stuff, the More tab, you have a lot more settings to mess around with. I've tried to poke through a manual on some of this stuff, but it hasn't been working out for me as the manual has instructed. Also, constraining multiple objects together is a little tricky at times. So we generally don't use newer SYNTHEYES. That's just us, though. So we're in old SYNTHEYES. So how do we do the anamorphic distortion? By the way, I hope chat's working, because I had some weird chat issues. Could somebody do me a favor and type something? Just because I'm a little worried that my restream is not working. I had to do a couple things for some reason to get things going. Alright, so I did think of something that I wanted to try. So you might see me fail something. Hey, Coda, awesome, thank you. Thank you for letting me know that's working. Alright, so you might see me mess something up, but here's what I'm going to do. Brian shot this. He has an anamorphic lens for his iPhone. He shot with Filmic Pro. If you're going to shoot in an iPhone, Brian knows this. Do not turn off stabilization. iPhones and most of the phones have optical or digital stabilization. Make sure you turn all of that off. When you stabilize footage, the footage has to move. And when the footage moves, the optical center moves. All solving programs, by default, want the very center of the footage to actually be at the center of your solve. If you move it around, you're going to screw yourself. Don, can you read this? Yes, thank you, Don. Okay, YouTube works too. That's good. All right, so, Okay, so anyway, yeah, so this was shot on an iPhone. Brian went ahead and shot a lens grid for me. He went to SYNTHEYES or somewhere and found a dot pattern. You can get a checkerboard or a dot pattern, and you can use it to undistort anamorphic stuff in SYNTHEYES versions that are older than 1903. So that's awesome. Normally, too, when you shoot anamorphic, I do want to say this before I jump into it, is you would normally get the anamorphic squeeze. If I go to edit shot, you can see there's pixel aspect or anamorphic squeeze or whatever. You would typically get a number like 1.3 or something like that, and you would type it in here, or the anamorphic squeeze right here, I believe. And it'll take your square. You would normally get this square output from a normal cinema camera, and then you would have to de-squeeze it. But from Brian, his footage is already de-squeezed due to Filmic, I believe. So we're not going to be touching anything like that. And yeah, so now let's see how this goes. So I want to bring in my lens grid. My lens grid, I am just going to bring it in as another shot, because that's just what I think I have to do. So I'm going to go shot, add shot. And off to the side, I'm just going to navigate, and I have a separate bit of footage here that Brian has provided. Yeah, I de-squeezed it in Resolve. Oh, nice. Easier for me. So I got my new footage here. I'm just going to go, okay, open it up. All right, so now I have camera 1, camera 2. And of course I have object 1. I did a little bit of tracking on this sphere. Not much, just enough to get it to solve. So camera 2, we're going to head over here. And to undistort this, again, you could have a dot grid like this, or you can go ahead and have a checkerboard. Also, you don't have to be super precise with it. You can have your camera at a bit of an angle, whatever. Like, a lot of people go insane with measuring it out super flush to these checkerboards. Yeah, it's good. Like, I will never say that I would turn down a perfectly flush checkerboard. But the solving software, or SYNTHEYES and 3DE, they're good at knowing what a square should be at most angles, and they actually solve on a grid and figure out what the distortion should be. So let's get into this. So these dots, we're gonna come up to shot. You're gonna just use these two: create lens grid trackers and lens master calibration. Brian, I just handheld that chart shot. Yeah, that's good. So you're only going to be using these two: create lens grid trackers, lens master calibration. So click on lens grid trackers. It's going to ask you, is this a checkerboard or grid of dots? And it's a grid of dots, so we're going to hit no. And now you can see SYNTHEYES has dumped a whole bunch of points onto these dots. And one of these points here kind of, like, I don't know what it was looking at. It's kind of lost its way. I'm going to delete this. And now just kind of make sure that all the other points are kind of doing a good thing. Cool. All right, so everything seems good. I'm just going to hit Control A, lock them. Oh, by the way, if you want, you can track these. Personally, I don't know why there would be a benefit, but hey, whatever. I tracked a little bit there, so, see what happens. I'm going to go shot, lens master calibration. Your audio is getting choppy now. Choppy? Wait, is it loud choppy? Like, is it laggy, or is it actually just I'm being too loud? Okay, I kind of toned down my talking voice. It looks like it's really sensitive today. I don't know why. I never get it to be this sensitive. All right. So I'm going to tone down my speaking voice then. Okay, so now we are here in the lens master calibration. On and off, but it's back. Oh, that's not good to hear. That's worrying to hear. All right, so hopefully my voice and everything is good. Let me just talk for a moment, make sure, because I don't want anything to be cut out of this part. So if anybody can just let me know, is my voice is it consistently being good at the moment? G, awesome, thumbs up, okay. Hopefully it's good then. Let me turn this down a little bit too, see if that helps, so I can not whisper or on my end. Okay, so it looks like it's working. I'm gonna go with this. Sounds good now? Thank you. Alright, then let's do this real quick. So I've jumped into lens master calibration. So I'm just gonna say this now. Like I said at the beginning of the stream, I am not an expert at anamorphic, especially in SYNTHEYES, because SYNTHEYES is not able to calculate accurate anamorphic. And it's also not the best at a lot of other distortions. SYNTHEYES does not handle multiple degrees of distortions. It has like quadratic, cubic, quartic, actually that's it. And it only solves those 3 parameters. 3DE can take each of those parameters and divide them up into quadrants and do all these other different degrees of distortion on each one. I think on radial distortion, which this is, spherical, you can get like, I think 16 parameters, I think, I could be wrong on that, of distortion just for a spherical lens. Maybe it was just choppy while he was tracking a million points at once. Oh, maybe. That's a good point, because those trackers probably ate up some process, I don't know. Okay, so anyway, yeah, 3DE, a lot better distortion. If you have access to 3DE, use that. So here, now that we have this, and I've said that I'm not an expert at anamorphic solving, especially within 3D or within SYNTHEYES, here's all I know. Types of calibration. This we want to, depending on what we're doing, straighten lines, or we're going to go fixed spacing. Fixed spacing is going to take all these squares, and it's going to say, hey, this needs to be a square. So the distortion is going to warp the footage to the point where every square is going to get its fixed space. And if we look at straighten lines I used recently because I have a fisheye lens on my camera, or on a camera. I have 2 cameras. And the fisheye lens, you get like this whole 180 degree field of view. And those shots, sometimes it's hard to get a checkerboard to span the field of a fisheye lens. So you can actually use lines, like actual lines. You could draw lines on straight edges, and then you can tell SYNTHEYES, use those straight lines, just straighten them out, and you can straighten out your fisheye. Random dots and known XYZs. I don't know what these are. I'm not a crazy expert at SYNTHEYES. I don't know every single option, and that's why I haven't done a tutorial on how to go about every single parameter and option. I've just figured out things I've needed to use, and I've rolled with it. Okay, so we're going to leave this at fixed spacing. Type of lens calculation, and I'm going to stick with anamorphic. That's what we've got. I don't know if we... Okay, here's a funny thing. I don't know if we actually need anamorphic, just because this footage has been desqueezed. I don't know if SYNTHEYES is taking that into account. It probably is. I'm probably just being stupid, but I'm going to stick with anamorphic. Fisheye, Equisolid. I used Equisolid for a fisheye. I didn't use fisheye for a fisheye lens, which is weird. I'm pretty sure I used Equisolid because... Oh boy, it's been a couple months now. I don't remember. You know what? Forget I said that. We're going to stick with anamorphic now. Orthographic. Oh, that's pretty cool. All right, anamorphic. Distortion equation. So here, anamorphic has the squeeze, but it is still a radial thing that has been stretched out. Coda, does SYNTHEYES have tools for dealing with lens breathing like in 3DE? Yes, it does actually. New SYNTHEYES. Hold on, I had new SYNTHEYES launch for a second. New SYNTHEYES, if we look over here, instead of having just this one distortion value, which is quadratic, if we hit more, you now have cubic and quartic on top of quadratic. So you can calculate like mustache distortions or like proper pin cushions and stuff. Here you have distortion eccentricity, squash slope, and all this stuff. This stuff will actually, you can get this stuff to animate. So when you get your focus breathing and stuff, this stuff will animate. And you can actually, when you bake in your distortion, you can watch your plate animate. So hopefully that answers your question. It's not, I don't think it's that great. I've used it a couple times. I've gotten it to work. It's just, again, distortion, I'm personally not going to be fully on the side of SYNTHEYES here. But SYNTHEYES is making some cool strides. I'm excited to see where it goes. Overall, SYNTHEYES is my favorite, so. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. So here with this, so we got anamorphic, fixed spacing, and quartic. Quadratic, we don't want to stick with quadratic, because quadratic alone, again, that's that one parameter. I don't want to have just the one. I'm a little weirded out that SYNTHEYES has cubic, quartic, and then quartic no cubic. So I can't just have quartic alone. I don't know why. but I'm going to go quartic because it's going to give me cubic as well. So basically you're getting quadratic, cubic, and quartic all together that are going to solve this plate. So I'm just going to go quartic. Compute lens center. So if your lens was offset and anything was kind of like, there are some pretty crazy imperfections with lenses. If your lens was, maybe you've translated your plate a little bit, or your lens was crooked or an old lens and your footage had a little shift so that optical center was offset, you could compute the lens center. Yeah, thanks. Awesome. Good, that helped, Coda. So yeah, compute field of view. I don't want it to compute field of view. I don't know if that's entirely accurate. I can't get it in my head that this would be an accurate thing, personally. So yeah. I would rather just let SYNTHEYES fix the spacing of my grid or checkerboard, and then I would do the solving myself and get my lens whatever I'm comfortable with. So I'm gonna leave that off. Estimated, I think that's a default. Again, I'm not an expert with this. Compute sensor tilt. Compute sensor tilt. That's a thing I heard was a thing with cameras. Some weird factory imperfections. Correct for rolling shutter? Nah. Okay, so I'm gonna hit OK. All I really did was fix spacing, anamorphic, quartic. I'm gonna go OK. And this stuff here, I don't believe I touched any of this. I tried to touch some of this. I'm gonna hit defaults. If this was squeezed and you don't have a number, you don't have a value, I think you can go find squeeze ratio. And it might take your squeezed footage and figure it out and just get it to the correct aspect ratio. I believe it's as simple as that. Axis angle, I don't know what that is. Determine the anamorphic rotation angle to the extent possible. I don't know what that means. I'd imagine this is another imperfection thing, like if your camera's shot slightly crooked, it'll go and correct it. Because 3D can do that, 3D can do anything. Okay, so I'm just gonna hit OK and just watch this go. Oh, one more window, sorry. One more window. So, composite with original. This is what I'm gonna stick with. This is workflow setup 2. This is the same, I believe, as if you go over to your... Oh, I can't click out of here. Let me go to new SYNTHEYES and show then. This is the same as, I believe, when you apply your lens workflow to your distortion, and you have type 1 and type 2. So I'm going to stick with 2 because I wanted to apply the distortion and show it visibly here. And that's what I want to work on. Padding. Padding is going to make sure that your plate, when it undistorts, it gives itself a little bit of spacing or something, I believe. Could be wrong. I don't pay too much attention to it. It's recentering. It's going to try and reposition your footage to account for the distortion. Preferred preset. I'm just going to go Lin preset. I don't know why. I saw Russ Anderson do it once, and I was in a rush. Maximum output field of view. I'm not going to touch anything. Once again, I can't stress, I'm not an expert at this. So I'm going to leave everything as it is. I'm just stuck with 2. Image map type. I think this is something. The file type used to store image distortion map. If this is what I think it is, I want to go EXR. That's just me. We use EXR for ST maps. This is going to generate an ST map. You'll see what that is in a moment. Okay, so now I'm going to hit OK. If my voice goes choppy, or if something happens to the stream, I think this is going to hang up just for a moment. SYNTHEYES is going to look like it's doing nothing. It's actually doing something. So I'm going to hit OK, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so SYNTHEYES is frozen. Curious if my voice is frozen. Hope not. Not like it matters. I'm just going to sit and wait. Hey! Our has done magic. Alright, so now that this has done stuff, we have a little note down here. Anamorphic lens with big distortion, error, 8.925. This is bad. So, I think this, and I'm not going to go super far with this because for the thousands, we can hear you through that still. Oh, nice. So, I'm not a super expert at Distortion Synthesize, but the way Russ Sanderson went about this error value is like, hey, there's something wrong here. Maybe we used the wrong settings. Like maybe it wasn't Quadratic, it was something else, or not anamorphic. Maybe it was something else. So what I can do is undo wants to move this node around. Cool. I undid the footage. So I'm going to come back to shot, lens master calibration. Actually, you got choppy while it recached. Oh, interesting. Okay. That's good to know. Hopefully it's better now because it's not caching. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. That's going to be annoying. So here, if I wanted to, I can play around with some other settings and see what I can get. I can come to, like, I can try some other stuff. Like, again, I kind of assume that since there has to be a Quadratic that says no cubic, that there would be that Quadratic was going to include other things and hopefully quadratic as well. Let's try quadratic. I really don't want to jump into some of the other stuff because I'm just not comfortable with it. So let's hit OK, and I'm just going to let this do its thing. So let's see if we get a higher error value. I actually went with Quadratic last time and I solved the shot and I got a really good error. That went higher. So I'm gonna do that and just go back to Quadratic. And I got a pretty good solve with it before, so I am just gonna roll with that. Okay, I had to stop that cache there. So I'm gonna switch from quadratic back to Quadratic. And again, iPhone anamorphic lens, like in that, assuming that anamorphic lens is not a very high quality lens. So the iPhone is gonna it's such a tiny, small sensor, small lens that there's gonna be some imperfections. SYNTHEYES is gonna find the error with it. It's going to. Also, it's a high resolution plate, so the error is going to appear quite high. The higher resolution your plate is, the more dense the pixels, the more technically that your tracker is going to say, I'm sliding across 8 pixels. So all things considered, I don't think it was the worst error. It was actually pretty decent, but you're going to have that. So I'm going to switch, I'm back to Quadratic, and let's go okay. Oh, come on. Alright, so this looks like it's gonna cache and be choppy. So I'm gonna jump over here now. So this is where I'm gonna try something. This is why I mentioned earlier that I was gonna try something and it might not work. I think this resolution here probably is the same. 492, 2160. Let's go back to camera 2. So these would normally be the same resolution. Now you can see the resolution of the undistorted plate has increased. For me, how I work on my own projects, this is the resolution that I render my CG at for my footage. I'll format my footage to whatever I want my final quality to be. And then whatever the resolution that SYNTHEYES gives me, with the increased, screen and pixels, I render with this, so that when I apply the distortion on my CG back in like Nuke or even through SYNTHEYES sometimes, there is enough resolution in my CG to be, expanded back. Okay, so here's what I was going to do. I was going to go to camera 1. So that image preprocessor, it actually gave us ST maps. So if I were to go to this shot, I could hit P, image preparation setup, come over to lens, and lens set. So here, what we have is a few presets, but if we look at the bottom, I believe this is it. Lens grid reformat, and we can't see the rest of the title. It should say undistort, and then this one should say like redistort, I think. So if I hit this, oh nope, I was wrong. Maybe these aren't what I thought they were. Okay, those are just other presets then. Okay, ignore these. So I'm gonna go open. So it brought me to where the maps just saved out. So here, I did them as EXRs. Earlier, I did TIFFs. I was testing out the stuff a couple days ago. So I have the sphere test. Okay, it's not labeled. And here, this one's labeled redistort. So this is undistort. I'm gonna click this first one. You're gonna get two maps. So I'm gonna click this first one. And now you can see it has undistorted this plate over here. Is the resolution has not increased. We undistorted the plate, but we did not get increased resolution. So if you rendered your CG with this resolution and that CG the camera 2, this has the correct resolution. So I'm just gonna swap out this lens grid with the plate. So I'm gonna go change shot images. Okay. And now sphere test A, load in our sequence. Oh no, more caching stutter. I gotta swap what processors are doing what for another stream. So it's about to, okay, so it's about to cache for a second. That's gonna get annoying to remember. But yeah, it's gonna cache for a second. I'm gonna go image pre-processing right now, turn the resolution down by half, and hopefully that speeds it up a bit. Okay, it's gonna start caching again. All right. I hope this is good. I hope this is handy for everybody. I'm not very comfortable teaching this, but I hope it's kind of insightful. Anamorphic. Yeah, I don't need this note anymore. If you want to get rid of this note, double click it, and you're gonna get this other window where you can type in your whatever stuff you want to it, but I'm gonna hit the little X and it's gone. And these trackers, these lens grid trackers, I don't need them anymore. I'm gonna delete them. And now, I tracked this ball before. I exported the points. I don't want to retract this. Yes, it is. I've been confused about ways to use lens distortion stuff. Yeah, it's quite irritating. I'm not the best at it either. I have ways that work for me. I don't know if it's the cleanest ways. I've talked to some comp artists in the past, and I think my way is okay. Okay, so I tracked this ball, but I tracked the ball on the footage where it before the undistortion. So when I bring in these points, you're going to see they're offset a little bit. So I'm going to go File, Import, 2D Tracker Paths. And here I'm under my directory, temp, and I have my points that I exported earlier. Open. And here I'm just going to make sure that the frame range is full. So I'm going to hit defaults, and it refreshes itself to the number of frames in the shot. So OK. Oh, I trimmed the shot. Okay, that's fine. The shot's trimmed right now, but I'm gonna work with it trimmed because the other shot was kind of long and Brian threw the ball. I actually wouldn't solve the ball throw, Brian. That's the points were so messy. I just wouldn't have done it because SYNTHEYES will kind of do funny things. Where the ball starts to get blurry is where in Maya or whatever program I would then hand animate it on a perfect smooth arc after that. And it doesn't even have to 100% match your rotation, because at that point, the CG is covering your styrofoam ball. It doesn't need to stick perfectly. All right, so you can see here, the trackers, there's some trackers in the ball, but they don't work. So I'm gonna fix them. And the nice thing about those ST maps is that if you wanted to use those ST maps on multiple shots in a sequence, like you undistort one shot, you can use those ST maps for multiple shots. And you can also use them to correct your trackers if your artist tracked on distorted footage. So I'm gonna go hit P, come over to lens, and so wondering if my image stayed in here from before. I'm just gonna go open, And let's go back to here, and I'm gonna grab our distortion map. So when I apply this distortion map, wait, something's not right here. Something's not right here. Hold on. This is the map. I already have the map loaded. Okay, so since I've undistorted this, since my Lens Master Calibration undistorted this footage, it's already applied. So this map is loaded. Sphere test, moment, and whatever. If I go to output, you could see here I have this stuff here is important. Apply to trackers, remove from trackers. And I have distortion checked. So I'm gonna make sure distortion is on. And if I hit apply to trackers, we'll see these points move. So you see that? That looks wrong. Those aren't fitting. That's worrying. Okay, so I'm gonna remove from trackers. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna try the map. I'm gonna go sphere test. Hopefully that's wrong. I'm gonna go open. And grab the EXR. So this is gonna potentially make our shot look funny. Oh, it's not? Okay. Huh. That is worrying. Okay, so why is that happening? Okay, I think I know what I did. Problem is that I think I exported these on a shot where I exported them off of a distorted plate. And now I don't have that ST map to work with these. So I'm gonna delete those, and I'm not gonna care about it at the moment. Okay, so anyway, the footage is undistorted. I'm gonna do a really quick track and solve of this. This is gonna be fast. Like, I think this is gonna be really fast. I'm gonna put down a bunch of points just to quickly do their own thing. Alright. I hope this is good. So I'm just gonna hit play. Awesome. So now I've gotten all those points tracked. I'm gonna hit Control A, plus button on the number pad, and they are locked. Now that I have that, I'm not even going to solve yet. I'm just going to go to Lens, Add Line, and I'm going to dot down a couple lines here. So I'm going to go start with this door, get a on Y-axis, parallel to Y, come get some parallel lines for Y. Cool. And now let's get a on Z axis. And now let's find some parallel Z lines. All right, so we're gonna roll with that. And now that we've got those lines down, let's get a couple parallel X lines. Again, when you have a third axis coming in, you don't want to use on X, just jump straight into the parallel. So now we've got X lines, Z lines, and a couple Y lines. So I'm going to hit align, and since we didn't do a solve, SYNTHEYES is up. Okay, SYNTHEYES apparently is supposed to not change your focal if you don't have a solve. I've done counter plenty. I don't know why. So I don't know if it's a bug or something that I'm not reading right in the manual. Okay. It's going to pick us a focal length of 11. And now if I hit F3, L, lock to camera, and a right click so I can start to pan and go 2D pan. You can see the red border around the screen. Now I can treat this like a 2D shot. So now I've got this lineup on frame 1. I'm just going to go F4, 3D, pull on, and move. And I can't see the lens grid in this view because we're in the 2D view. If I hit 4 on my keyboard, we'll get quad view, but with the 3D view. So now I can move this up, around, and I can see our scene get placed. I just wanted it to be rough. Just because I wanted to. Alright, so I want to make some really quick walls. So I'm going to go over here to the geometry and get a box. Oh, at the top, of course. And let's just drag it down somewhere rough. Scale it up. I don't like that shape I drew. I'm going to engulf the camera. There we go. And invert its normals so that we can see the inside of the box. Now I'm going to go move. So how I'm going to move this is I want this box, these corners, to be flush with the corners of the room. So I'm just going to drag this along and try to fit it to those corners as best I can. There we go. And now I want this wall to go and meet the floor. Also, I'm going to hit G on my keyboard. That gets rid of the ground plane. So I'm going to take this box, and we're in the translate. I'm going to go to the Y-axis, and we're going to move it up and down until we get to the bottom. So I'm not perfectly at the floor line because, you know, the baseboard. Just imagining that little space there. So now we should have the floor fine. Walls should be happy with this now. So I'm going to also, don't worry about the floor not being right here just yet. I'll do something cool about this in a second. Alright, so now I'm going to go back to F2, get into our camera view. I'm going to select all our points. Oh, by the way, I just want to say this camera does not have a lot of parallax, so if your points aren't perfectly on the depth of the wall, it's fine. Like the window is slightly inside the wall, I'm going to take these anyway. Door, the painting, I'm going to grab one of these points. This painting is slanted against, or whatever, this is kind of slanted, it's rested up against the wall, so this isn't perfectly on the wall. We'll do something about that too. Let's take this thing that's this curtain thing. Let's take another one down there. This is probably close enough to the wall. Alright, so we've got some points evenly spaced around the scene. I actually don't want too many. I'm going to get rid of these. I don't know why I went on such a selecting spree. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I try to keep your constraints around 4. 4 is the minimum. And also, the more constraints you have around your scene, SYNTHEYES, those constrained points will fight each other because they're trying to pull and make sure that the solve is perfect in their little areas. They will pull the camera around and fight. So try not to have too many. You could totally have a lot and just drop them all on. It could be fine. 100%, it could be fine. That's just a warning. I like to keep as minimal as possible. So these points, I'm going to go up to track, drop onto mesh. And now if I hit F4, you can see that we have seed points. So these points, these seed points, are coordinates for the trackers. So if I go to tracker, you can see now that the trackers that I selected, it has position data. If I select a tracker we didn't drop, it has nothing. So these yellow points, that is just a position that tracker, when you solve, the 3D point is gonna try and stick to this seed point. Just had a realization about that like a day ago or something while I was talking to Brian on the Discord. So now with those seed points and these points, they all have lock turned on now. So now if I go to solve, if I turn constrain on, constrain is going to tell the SYNTHEYES, Constrain is going to tell SYNTHEYES to obey those locks that are on, and it's going to snap those trackers to these points. So if I hit go, hat to size constrain. Oh, okay, hold on. So when you hit, this is the same with 3DE. If you hit solve, it's going to solve not just your current camera, your other stuff in your scene. So I got to go to camera 1. I don't want it anymore. Oh, I got rid of my object too. Okay, whatever. You got rid of my... Oh, object 1 was under my camera, so it deleted itself. That's fine. Okay, so I got rid of that camera and the object, apparently. So, with constraint on, if I hit go, you could see that the points have kind of all found their spots. So if I hit play, now we have this shot solving. Stop going slow. There we go. I wasn't going slow, I just had more timeline than I needed to see. So this is solving, and if we highlight some points here, you can see things look like they're kind of going into the correct depth. So here's the thing, if we solve this without building the room and without using these lock points, if I turn constraint off and hit go, wow, that is remarkably close. That is surprisingly close. I'll be honest, I am shocked that this is solving as close as it is. So if you have some dropped points and their points are locked, if you don't have constraint on, you can see that they're not hard locked. SYNTHEYES just did a free move, nothing forced, and then it lined up the scene as best as it can to those seed points. And they are close, like so close. That is actually amazing. So okay, so I'm gonna turn constraint back on and hit go, just because I like when points are perfect on a wall. This painting actually isn't correct. That painting, like I said, there was something about it. Let me undo this real quick. I'm gonna undo that solve. I'm gonna get a couple points more accurate. Okay, so we're just before I hit solve. Just to be a little more accurate, this painting on the wall, I'm gonna come over here, gonna make a plane. What angle am I at? Okay, so we got the painting right there. And I'm gonna drag this over. There we go. So I'm gonna go to where this plane meets the wall. Slide it back. Bring it up, so we're touching the corner of the painting that's touching the wall. So now if I come to a side view, come to rotate, and turn the lock on. If you turn the lock on, wherever you click on the plane, you will be pivoting from that point. So I'm going to pivot from the top of this plane. So now we got the... Oh, that's too high. Okay, there we go. So now you can see I've rotated the painting. So if I select our... let's turn the lock off. So if I select our point here, the one that's projected, now if I project, we get that little bit of depth from the painting. So that's, for a shot like this with as little parallax as it has, that's kind of overkill. But, you know, something to keep in mind. So now if I go solver, constraint on, let's go back to quad view and watch it. Go. Our point has that little separation from the wall that it should have. Why is that off? Oh, because, okay, that's fine. All right. Is there anything anyone wanted to know? Because I did track this ball before. But those points I accidentally exported them wrong. And I can't really recover them easily. So I don't know if anybody had any questions. I'm just gonna refine this camera now. I'm gonna smooth it, and that's kind of it. So yeah, this is the time for questions, if there are any. So this camera path here is very choppy. So to smooth this out and call the shot done, I'm going to go, I'm under solver, I'm gonna go to filter and control. Filter these axes. We're gonna go for the translation, just the path, not the rotation, not the field of view, just the actual path. And when I hit filter, we have this now. And reset, always reset. If you don't reset, SYNTHEYES is going to apply this smooth to every solve after you hit go. That's bad. Because when I smoothed, we actually have to correct the rotations. But if you have this always on and you hit solve, technically your rotations are always wrong. So reset, close. So the seed point still does something even when lock is off. Yep, exactly. Pixel still. I don't remember how I pronounced it last time, but I like pixel still now. The seed points, they will influence your scene. Your camera will move roughly into position until you turn constrain on. Then constrain will say, hey, lock these points hardcore. Brian, when I tried to do the object track and have it align, I had issues with it aligning, but maybe my camera solve was part of the issue. Yeah, so actually, okay, here's the thing about that. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. One sec, Brian. So I'm gonna hit solve on this. I smooth the path. We're gonna go into refine mode and go to axes lock, position lock on. Again, do it on the first frame, always the first frame. And then get your smooth path loaded in here. Speaking of the seed path, note how, again, this is what I was talking to Brian about before on Discord. Note how this says seed path. These yellow points are called seed. If I hit get, so this animated path is loaded in here. So what this actually is, if I hit F7 on my keyboard, and now if I come over to camera and objects, let's go to camera and objects, open up camera 2. So we're on solve velocity. This is just how jittery and shaky your camera is. I could turn that off. So there's solve path and seed path. If I open up seed path and double click a hand so it expands it out, this is our smooth path. Also, you can see SYNTHEYES had a filtering issue here. I'm gonna clear this. Also, I'm gonna fix this stuff here. That's very sharp and poor. I don't know why SYNTHEYES does this. It always does it on the first and last frame sometimes. Okay, so this smooth path, this is what's here. So the point of having a seed path and your solve path, so if I open up solve path, where is it? Oh, because I smoothed it, and okay. So if I turn off position now and I solve, so here you could see, okay, so here's both paths. Here is our normal unfiltered solve, which is what our camera is doing right now. This is under solve path. And we have our seed path. And the seed path is the very smooth path. The point of having them separate, why you load in your smooth path here, why you hit get, is because there is actual weighting to this. 0 is a hard lock. 0 means if I have our lock on, it's gonna 100% make this crooked path this smooth path. So if I hit go, what? Why didn't that go? I hate when things don't work. Why did that not do what I expected it to do? Oh, because I turned the thing halfway off. So you can see that my lock, I tried to turn it off halfway through the shot, So you can see half the shot is perfectly smooth and the other half is like gets all crooked. So I'm going to go to the first frame, control right click, so all keyframes of this are gone. So if I turn this on, hit solve, you can see that it is listening 100% to that smooth curve. Now if I turn this to something like 60 and hit solve, shift G, I don't know if you saw it, but this changed slightly. So if I go, let's say 20, so we have a little bit of influence, but not much. If I go 40, so we're slowly creeping this so that it's like this is a weighting of how smooth, how much you want it to match your smooth curve. So see, it keeps getting closer and closer. Let's go 60. It keeps getting closer and closer. If I go up to like 120, which I believe is also a hard lock. Yeah, so now it's like 100% stuck there. So starting at 1, it's kind of weird with SYNTHEYES because starting at 1 is nothing. And then the higher you go now, the stronger it is. And then 120 is 100%. But 0 is also 100%. What? Get out of here. Am I keying that? Oh, I keyed it. You can also key the weighting. I'm gonna control right click it on the first frame. Now it's all gone. So now that it's 0, it is a hard weight again. I'm sorry if this is confusing anyone. I just find this interesting. I hope other people find this interesting as well. And I hope I'm explaining it well, because this is confusing. I've never explained this to anybody, ever. I hope this is good. So I'm gonna make sure my weighting is on 0. And that's what the seeding is. In SYNTHEYES, seeding means kind of there's data. So like the trackers have their seed point, their position in space, that data that these trackers want to stick to. Our seed path, we smooth this path and loaded it into the seed path. So that's existing path data that we want SYNTHEYES to stick to. But we can tell it how strong we want it to stick to the smooth path. I hope that made sense. This is revealing. I'll play around with it and check it out. Nice. What's cool about this, like animating the weighting and saying like, hey, we want your camera to have a little bit of jitter at the beginning because it's a crazy action sequence and the camera's got to be moving around or something. But you want it to be really smooth and angelic at the end because maybe it's the calm in the storm. So your camera is going to smooth out at the end, and you can have a super smooth path, and you can say, okay, listen to the super smooth part, like 90% or 120%. So yeah, you can animate the stuff if you want. I typically don't animate this ever, honestly. It's just you can do it. So our camera should be really smooth. I'm gonna go F4. Go into the room, 3D. Gonna come down and make a matrix geometry. So I'm going to zoom out so I can watch this matrix be created, because I like to make it square. There we go. And now with these matrix points, we can see that the foreground with the camera is nice and smooth. Dario, hey Dario! That was the best explanation yet of how the locks work. Yes, bless me. Dario is an employee of Track VFX. He works with me. Yeah, it's I should figure out a way to make a really good coherent tutorial on that, like a proper tutorial. I gotta get back into the proper YouTube tutorials. For anybody who cares, I see there's 8 people apparently. The YouTube channel, I'm just trying to figure out when I want to do this. I'm going to move all the live streams, most of the live streams, actually, maybe all of them, I don't know. I'm going to get rid of them all. and I'm gonna redo each live stream and redo all the problems and issues I've had, and redo the streaming, correct all the streaming issues I've had, fix the pacing of things because there's a lot of tracking nonsense that I shouldn't have been doing in them. There's going to be a track live channel here soon. And the main YouTube channel, I'm going to start doing proper, like, actually well put together tutorials. So that might be a thing here soon. Where's Track VFX based? Track VFX is based in Vancouver, Canada. Yeah. Yeah, if anyone was local or whatever, we're always looking for artists. Yeah, we're always looking for artists here. We're always trying to expand. Okay. I'm excited for the day that we can go back to the office. I hate sitting at home. I hate sitting here. I want to go. I want to see people. So honestly, as far I could probably track this ball in like 10-15 minutes. If anybody wants me to try to solve this ball, I can. But Brian, this ball, you're solved. So here's the thing. I've tracked, okay, so just to avoid some, yes please. Okay, I think I kind of have to now. As if one person wants to see it, I'm going to do it now. I'm going to start tracking as I talk. And I'm going to try and track this quick. So if this is sloppy tracking, I'm sorry. But Brian, so lining up a sphere to this, I actually really struggle to get spheres to line up. I don't know what it is. Again, this is sloppy tracking. Sorry, ignore how fast I'm going with this. But like the thing is, I think the styrofoam ball of yours is crooked. It looks like there's a notch right here. These styrofoam balls, if I'm correct, I think they're two domes that are glued together. They have a funny shape. And a lot of that tends to happen a lot in VFX or on projects where I have to track some of these. And it's hard to get them to line up perfectly. So if I were you, just make sure your ball sticks around the fingers. So when you have trackers and locators close by your finger, make sure your model fits best around those trackers. Okay, so this tracker I'm going to call done. Again, I'm just going to blast through these as fast as I can. And I'm not going to put a lot. We're just going to get this to solve. Yeah, I don't know what it is with spheres. Even really good spheres just are hard to line up because there isn't really an efficient way to snap a sphere to fit within the confines of the trackers, as far as I've ever seen. I've actually been thinking about it the past couple of days if there's a way that I can do it with a simulation, because I can probably make a sphere, a rigid sphere, inflate a little bit to make contact with the locator points, and then just stop itself inside the confines of those locators. But I just don't know if that's overkill. There's snap-align tools, but they're not really meant for something like this. They're meant for if you have accurate positions. You know what? Tracking these little dots might be a little quicker. So yeah, I don't have too much tips for you to line up the sphere. I think it's crooked. You can clearly see the little split here. So it's not a perfect sphere. You're not going to be able to get a sphere to line up to this. I just realized I'm tracking this into my camera. That's fine. We'll move these points in a couple minutes. Okay, I'm going to not track that one. And let's go to another easy point. Ooh, get out of here. Brian, does it require some animation cheating? Yes. Wait, Animation cheating. What was I just explaining? Oh, animation cheating on the ball. Yeah, you can totally do it. If it's on your own project, I would do as much cheating as you can, personally. Because there's a lot of the time where perfect match moves are actually not required. Like a ball like here, if you wanted to, you could definitely nudge your model around, make it fit better to the thumb, or like if it's crooked on one frame, do a little animation, move it, and then just watch it for a couple frames. You could totally do that. That's actually part of the job. Of course, though, you have a lot of trackers on here. You definitely want to strive to, make it really solid. And then hopefully shape your model as best as you can to your prop. In this case, your prop is perfectly round. I'd probably just try to make the prop fit as best you can to the fingers, because it would suck to not have yours perfectly round. That was a cool looking model you showed me. Okay, how many points are there? Okay, I'm not going to do much more of there. I'm just going to get this X. Let's get a further point over here. Okay, I think this X comes back. Yes, it does. Always get yourself returning points. Ah! Oh man, this point's so bad. This point is so bad. It's kind of funny. It's been so long since I've done auto tracking. I thought, oh, this shot looks pretty ideal to auto track. I've forgotten how to do it. I had to sit and watch some tutorials, and then even though I followed the tutorials, it didn't quite work for me, which was weird. I followed the steps like step by step. So I gotta sit and play around with auto tracking again. I'm just not a very confident believer in auto tracking. Gone. Let's get the big N. Ooh. Oh no, this point's frustrating. I'm gonna stop. I gotta sneeze. Ooh, I gotta sneeze real bad. Oh, the sneeze is going away. It was a welcome sneeze, but it left. Considering the pleasantness of a sneeze once arrived, I'm disappointed it did. It left. Almost done. At least, again, like, you would want to track most of these points if you can, but for me, I just want to blast through this. Be gone. Okay, let me track the big obvious X. I'm trying to track points that are at least on the most concave portions of the ball in relation to the camera. Because if I'm gonna get away with tracking so little trackers, I might as well make sure that they are at the proper depths and quadrants of the ball. Jamal, hi, in the right time. Jamal, you missed the good parts of the stream, man. I did Anamorphic on an iPhone. I've never done that before. Brian there in the chat provided footage. And now I'm retracking this ball. I've actually tracked this ball already, except I messed up the point export and it was a little bit more... There was some reasons that I couldn't really recover the trackers easily. Alright, and now, okay, just a couple frames at the end and we'll call this ball tracked. Oop, I didn't lock this tracker. Plus button. And, ooh, not good. This is so fast and crude. Man, I thought the stream was going to be fast. Okay, 1, 2, 3. I need a minimum 4, but I want to go 5. Oh, that's the A. That's this A. Ooh, I'm going to track this tail because it returns. Dude, okay, if you have an object spinning around and you have a point like this A come back around, see, it came back around to the very end. That is amazing. This will help your solve kind of connect itself at the end, and it'll alter all your points and give you a better fit. You'll watch later? Nice. I hope it works. Hope it works for you, man. Yeah, this A is amazing to have here. Okay, I'm going to disable it there, and I'm just going to... Wait, which part of the A did I... Okay, the A part, that's going to be closest to us. Yes, right here. All right, so we got that at the end, and now I've got to clean up this beginning that I didn't track. All right, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we got 3 trackers. That's not going to solve. By the way, if you want, I don't use this. I don't like it personally, but if you want, you can have a visual guide on the time bar. Well, hold on. If I hit F7, come to this window down here, you could see... Oh. Interesting. Thought there was supposed to be colors here. Wait, shot. Time bar. Instead of caching, instead of showing the image cache, we can go tracker count. Oh. Oh! Sorry. Hold on, I'm gonna make an object. These points. So I wanted to say you can get a color pattern. It'll tell you like red if you don't have enough trackers here on this frame. But all my trackers are under camera 1. So SYNTHEYES is like, your shot's glorious. You don't need any more points. I'm just gonna separate my trackers. I'm gonna go shot, add moving object, and now collect. Let's collect up the sphere points. Wrangle them up. And now we're going to put these points. I can go click over here, object 1, and what do? I want to clone them? No, I just want them to move completely under the object. Now you can see we have a color bar at the bottom, and red says, hey, here there's only 3 points. That doesn't work. Jamal, please, can I ask if I have no information, for example, about my camera, and by only filming a checker board, will that provide me focal length and lens distortion, of course? It'll give you lens distortion, yeah. Focal length, SYNTHEYES can try and calculate a field of view from your checkerboard. It's probably accurate. I just don't know if it is for certain reasons. Yeah, for certain reasons, I don't know. It probably is accurate. It's tough for me to say just because I've seen conflicting things in the past. But yeah, if you have no information, you should use lines. If you have perspective lines in your scene, like doors, windows, use the lens tab and drop down some lines. I use it quite frequently in most of my streams, and I did it in this stream as well to make this room, because these can give you a really good focal length. But again, your footage needs to be undistorted before you use lines. Or you need to have some calculated distortion before you use lines to calculate your distortion. All right, so let me track a couple more points and get this part out of the red. We're in the yellow. Why am I still going with this point? Said I wasn't gonna take too long on these points. Okay, let's get that one out of here. And just because it lasts and it's kind of on a contour, I'm going to do this one and make sure it kind of lasts. Whew, this point has some drift. It is sliding around. A little ashamed of it. Again, if you have points that are lasting around the contour of an object, make it last as long as you can. Thank you. I missed it. That should be first undistorted. Yeah. Technically, you can't get an accurate field of view unless your footage is undistorted. Or was it angle of view or something? I don't know. I can't remember. Well, focal length. Anyway, you can't get an accurate focal length until your footage is undistorted. If you take your camera and you have your film back, you say, "Oh, I shot this on a 50mm lens." That 50mm is not accurate. That's not, in terms of VFX, it's not accurate. It's technically accurate in terms of the lens itself because I can't, the convergence thing and backplate or whatever it is. But when you undistort your footage for VFX, you get extra image. Your focal length is going to expand and change. So in terms of solving in 3D, your focal length is technically different. Just because, again, the increased space that you're going to get. So half the time, if this shot, if I took the focal length for the iPhone for this, it would be unusable. It wouldn't work for this. Okay, so let's try solve this now, see what the ball does. This is not a lot of points. You want more points, but let's just see what it does. So camera 1 is on refine. It's going to keep solving if I don't turn this off. So I'm going to go disabled. I'm going to change our lens to known and copy the field of view history. Yeah, even the field of view has a seed. And when I copied it, the field of view is now going to lock to that focal length seed. Alright, so now the camera is not going to do anything. So let's go over to Object 2 and just hit go. Oh, can't locate satisfactory frames. Cool. So it did not find 2 frames that it was happy with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to force it. I'm going to go beginning and end. I'm going to pick a couple frames, not too far from each other. These 2 frames, you want the same trackers visible within these 2 frames. So I'm going to keep somewhere around here. There's a little bit of rotation in the object, so that's some nice parallax between those 2 frames. And hit go. It's solved. So now, you can see we have a pretty good solve, 0.6 error. Happy that's a 0.6 error just because I tracked those points so sloppily. Also, the resolution of this plate is really high. Okay, so let's just take a quick look at some of these. So this isn't completely accurate because realistically, this dot at some point is going to be at that little apex of the sphere, which our point doesn't quite reach to. So that is the result of me not tracking all the trackers I could be tracking on this object. If I track more of these, like let's say I track this one here. Brian, that looks infinitely better than mine, even though I made a ton of trackers. What's kind of nice about if you put a lot of trackers, the more trackers that you put, you can actually get new SYNTHEYES. You can get new SYNTHEYES, go into the More tab, instead of just quadratic, turn on these other stuff, and the more trackers you have in your shot, you can solve a better distortion. I don't think I would use Anamorphic Distortion if I were you, though, in SYNTHEYES for stuff like this. Just because you de-squeezed it. And the lens grid, of course. Actually, what I said there was a little bit broken, but anyway. So this one point that I tracked. So the reason why you want a lot of points, I've heard teachers in school, and I've actually witnessed people in past studios teach people this as well, that only track what you need. And what they mean that you need is like, oh, you get like 4 or 6 points around your object, and they say, oh, well, you only need this amount of points to get a solve. That is a load of garbage. That is garbage. Because this point here, this point alone, if I solve now with this point, look at these points at the back of the sphere. See how much that moved? Look at how much this sphere adjusted with this 1 extra point. It even corrected this point down here a little bit. There is a ripple effect with trackers. The more that you have, they work off of each other. And they will continue to keep building you a better solve if you keep adding trackers. So that was just the easiest example of how drastic that can be. And like I said, those points, how they adjusted, I also made sure that this point here reconnected at the end. Let's say if I turn this off at the end so that it doesn't reconnect with itself. Okay, so I just turned off the tracker. It's on at the beginning, but it is turned off at the end. If I hit solve, let's see what this does. Look, that point's off now. It wasn't, which means, look at all these points. If I unlock, look at all the points on the object. As I undo and redo, see how different they are? How much worse they got? So that is why you really want to make sure that these points reconnect. So I'm going to undo that delete, lock it, and I'm at that good solve again. Okay, so let's pretend that this solve at its current state is good. It actually is. It's a pretty good solve. The object's pretty stable. It's clean. If you put CG on this, it'll look amazing. For production on a movie or TV show, you likely want to take more time, track more of those dots, and get that as like 100% as you can. Some studios might stabilize. Some studios will take your points in Maya or whatever program, and they will lock onto them, and they'll watch what they're doing. And if they see some drift, they'll be like, "Oh, that's wrong. Kick it back. Make them redo it." Realistically, no viewer can ever see this. The viewers see this, and this looks amazing. So there's a lot of times where people don't quite understand that, and your track could be good enough, but some people won't know that, and they'll kick it back at you. So hopefully that was insightful on the tracker. So this ball now. So Brian, here you're likely going to see me fail. Because I'm pretty sure a sphere will not fit accurately, because look at this. Because again, these are like 2 domes stuck together. But here's the best that I could offer. Let's pretend this sphere is perfect. I don't have a good way to line up a sphere. That's a tricky object. Where's the sphere? Oh, the sphere is not scaled, so it's way back in space. So I'm going to go over here, make the sphere roughly the scale, go translate, bring it down, and hey, sphere's your uncle. Not Bob. Alright, so here, let's fit that a little bit. So now that that sphere is sitting there, I want to start to pin it. I'm going to temporarily hide my foreground objects, because otherwise I won't be able to see past them. So I'm going to go F3 into our 3D view, and we can't see our sphere. So I'm going to go... I could scale this object back towards the camera, or I can push the clipping plane out. I'm actually just going to go into quad view. Under object 1, go scale, pull, and drag this big 1. This 1 right here. So here's the thing: if your sphere doesn't follow if your sphere stays in its place but your points scale, that means you have to right click, go Hole Effects Meshes. If I turn it off, see, I get that. So just make sure that you know this button is here, Hole Effects Meshes. So now I'm going to scale that ball back into the room. Cool. And I'm not going to worry about its depth to be 100% accurate. I'll definitely redo the shot playing this video as my guide. Nice. Do it. Alright, so I have this sphere here. I'm going to go... I don't like the size of the trackers or the object itself. I'm going to go Edit, Scene Settings. Object size, we're going to take this down to like 1. Wait, or whatever. Because I don't like this object. I don't like the object size here. I always turn it like right down to nothing. And tracker size is 0.5. Let's go 0.1. Sure, 0.1 is fine. I can't see the scene, the other trackers around the scene, but whatever. So okay. Also, here's your far and near clip. I could have pushed this up a bit, and that near clip is always so small. Okay, so now we have this object here. Here's what I'm going to try. I'm going to pin this. If I go pinning off to the side to your toolbars, if you don't have this toolbars, right click. Here you got toolbars, and you have the toolbars. The toolbars. But here's all the options that are on the toolbar. So make sure, so I got pinning here turned on, right here. So create, edit, pin. If I click and drag on the mesh now, I'll move it around. And if I click a second point, we're now, aiming and scaling it. If I put a third point, we are now actually moving it in 3D. So right now, this is moving my track points. I don't want it to move my track points. So I'm gonna undo that. If I want to move this object if I want to move the sphere without moving the object, I have to get the sphere outside of the object. So I'm gonna go GOH, just because it gives me this outliner over here. So if I look over at object 1, we can see our sphere is underneath. I'm going to drag this into world space at the bottom. So now I can pin this sphere without moving the object, because the object is just its own thing in space now. So I'm going to go grab, I'm going to go grab the farthest contour I can, bring it up there. And now again, the next contour that I have that I'm able to see. And now just kind of fitting it as best as I can. It's not going to fit perfect. There's imperfections here. Again, this sphere is like 2 domes put together. We're not going to get this accurate. Okay, so now this looks like it's an okay fit. But the thing is, if I go F4, look at it here, it doesn't line up with the trackers. So I'm going to go to 3D, and if I go scale, so if I have scale on, if I click on the sphere, it scales up, but not the right way. If I click on the camera, I would like this to scale back from the camera, but it's not doing it right now. So if I select the sphere, oops, did I scale it? No, I didn't. So if I select the sphere, turn on lock, and remember earlier I said with the plane on the wall, if you turn on lock, you will scale and rotate from whatever point that you click on. So see, I clicked on the camera and hit scale. We're scaling back and forth without altering its position in space. So now I can push this back till it lines up to the points, but I can't exactly see the points perfectly here because I don't know if half of these are penetrating the mesh. So I'm gonna hit 4 on my keyboard. Yeah. Wait. Oh, okay. So if I go solid shaded here, which if you hit the, oh, what's that stupid key on the keyboard? The key that's under backspace. I always forget what it's called. That slash one that's above the enter key and below backspace. I'm going to hit that. So it turns on solid shading. So now if I select the sphere, scale it from the camera, you could see when the points start to pass through the mesh. So just kind of pick your favorite, honestly. You could see, like, really, if it was a perfect sphere, these should all kind of be penetrating at the same time, but they're not. I think I just found the balance. Brian, pipe. Yes, pipe. It's pipe. I googled that 2 days ago. Alright, so the object is now lined up to the object. So I'm going to go to GOH, back just because the outliner's here. And I'm going to grab the sphere, drag it under object 1. There we go. So now when I scrub, hey, our sphere is lined up. So if I play here, Okay, so that looks pretty cool. It's not perfect. Spheres are really hard to line up. Spheres are something that in Maya, I tend to put the pivot of a sphere on a locator, and then I'll scale the sphere from that point so that on the other side, it'll scale to a point where it fits. So let's try that. So this point here, what point is this? F4, sorry. So that's this point here, tracker 395. Much better than what I got, nice. So now, I like that it's kind of sitting there. We want to fix that. So, we're going to go back to 3D, scale, make sure the lock is on. So now, come on, don't give me this. Why isn't that working? Jamal, did you test doing mocap and SYNTHEYES? I have actually. It's not fun. SYNTHEYES is not very great at mocap. At all. Yeah, it's not good. But it can do it. It can give you usable results. It's just the options aren't great. Okay, so this sphere, I was hoping it was going to scale from a point. I don't know why it didn't do that. I'm going to see if it lets me scale when it's outside of the object. Interesting. Lock. So, scales from the camera. Oh, okay. So it'll scale from a point when it's not under the object? That's weird. Okay, so I'm going to go back to our tracker 395, which is this point right here. And you'll see if I scale from this point, we can start to fit the other side of the sphere better. Except this fit is pretty good right here. It's just this part, which is kind of the cut in the dome. So I think we have it as good as we're going to get it. I'm going to average it out between... I'm going to average it between fitting on this line and this line. Just meeting it halfway. Ah, no. Okay, so I'm going to take the sphere, GOH, bring it under object 1 again. Alright. So that's... I think as good as we're going to get it here, honestly, just with this sphere. Brian, if I were you, in whatever program you're working with, where it's easier for you to move an object around, make sure that the parts of your sphere fit the best where the fingers are making contact. And honestly, even if the fingers don't make perfect contact, it's probably going to look fine anyway. It's like I guarantee it'll look fine. Even fingers here, like if you roto this finger on top of the sphere and this finger, roto it to be on the back of the sphere, it's gonna look fine. It's gonna look good. But, you know, I would just pay attention to those contact points. Hard. I did it before, but in PF Track it is easy. Yeah, PF Track is awesome for mocap, man. Because you can pipe in the node tree and see your trackers, and you have the user track nodes, and the trackers just work. It's awesome. I miss that so much. I use Blender to produce 3D scene with different camera. Amazing time. Yeah, Blender does pretty... I can't remember. Did Blender ever start figuring out how to do mocap? Or are they still staying pretty standard with their tracking software? I don't like their solver. Blender tracking is actually the first tracker I ever learned how to use. I bought Track Match Blend way back in 2011. I used to be a big Blender user. I still occasionally poke around in Blender now, still. I'll probably shoot again. Oh, Brian, I'll probably shoot again with it painted green instead so I can key it. Put the fingers back on top. If I were you, I would probably just make the ball the color of your CG. Make it dark. Because your orb that you showed me looked dark. And it'd be nice if your object wasn't bright, like reflecting light, lighting up your fingers here. And also, if you did green, you're going to start having green reflection on your hand. You could despill it on, like, you'd be fine. You could totally use green. It would work. But if you have tracking markers on your green, you're probably still going to have to roto and clean them out. But honestly, a lot of the time, roto is used a lot more than you would think in VFX. There's times where even on green screen, they kind of say, screw it, we still got to roto this. So they roto it. They roto a lot of people even if they're on green screen sometimes. It doesn't, I made it sound like it happens very, very often. I shouldn't have said that, but I shouldn't have said it like that, but it does happen occasionally. So it's just by hand roto, which is probably best. Yeah, this is very fast roto. If you have Mocha would track this in no time. Okay, one last thing for the sphere. Brian also gave a scale for this. I don't want to do the scale because I don't think it's going to work, but let's just try it real quick. I'm going to select the two furthest points on the ball, roughly these two. So I'm going to alt click the other one so they're linked. And what is... If I go to trackers, so here I have distance now. I don't remember... Where's my phone? I'm going to pretend it was 4 inches. What's 4 inches to centimeters? 10 centimeters. So distance, I'm going to type in 10. And we'll see if this ball pushes its way forward and back. Initial seeding does not activate combined constrained trackers. Okay, so the ball has these two constrained trackers, but I guess SYNTHEYES wants them both visible. Wait, can I go solver and turn constraint off now? Oh my gosh. Oh, but the sphere didn't move. What? Okay, so that constraint. A measure thing won't work the same way with an object, and it's a bunch of weird reasons why it won't. So I'm going to get rid of that scale constraint. So if you want to scale this object, here's a way you can do it. At least a simple way for me. Is if I drag a plane, just a really long, thin plane. Where'd it go? Wait, I gotta drag it beside so I can see it. A long, thin plane. Here it is. Where is it over here? So if I go to scale, looking here, what's 6? Okay, so 6 is the length of this plane. That's in centimeters. So if I type in 10 here, so that's 10 centimeters. We could rotate this roughly and take the sphere. Again, this is a dirty way to do it. You're much better off going into Maya or Blender, putting a scale constraint between both sides, and then scaling your object back. This is just me being stupid in SYNTHEYES. So I'm gonna go whole. Oh, I put the plane under the object. Let's kick this one out. Gone. So 3D, whole, scale on, and so I can kick this back until it kind of gets to this little ruler that I made. It's close, man. This might be it. Yeah, okay, so that's it. So I've scaled the ball. So I'm gonna select all my points here. I'm gonna select them all, and I want them to lock into this position, because if I don't lock them, the sphere is gonna move around and do funny stuff. I'm glossing over why. I'm sorry. But here, to give these trackers lock data, I'm gonna come over to their constraints. Easy way to do this. I can go plus, minus. So yeah, I did plus minus, and now every tracker has a seed point, and they all have data. So if I select them all, turn on lock, now when I solve this, their object will always line up these trackers as they are. Reason I did that is because I want to go to camera, and I'm going to take the points that I locked. If I hit 2 on my keyboard, 2 on my keyboard, that shows me any tracker that has a constraint. So I'm going to select all of these. Now F2, I've selected these lock points. If I hit F4, I'm just going back into the quad view. So if I look in this view, that plus and minus, what it does is it pushes points forward and backward from the camera. So I want to push these trackers outwards from the perspective of the camera. I should have had a point on that table. Is that the painting? That's the painting. So dragging these lock points out. And I am going to lose my camera smooth if I do this. So I'm going to go to automatic. I got to turn off my lock path because the path is now going to get bigger and different, so we can't lock the path. So I turned off the lock path. We're back in automatic, and I'm just going to hit go. So you could see that the rest of our 3D points have now snapped to this bigger scale. And the ball's kind of back there. This was kind of a weird way to do it. But now all these points, I can go plus minus. See, I can scale them out and keep hitting solve. And you can see that my scene keeps getting bigger and smaller. So that is a way that you could do it. And again, I just roughly guessed because I don't know the scale of this room. Brian, Jamal, to reactivate new seed lock position. To reactivate new seed lock position. I'm not too sure what you mean by that. Yeah, I'm not too sure what you meant by that. Reactivate. They were always active. It's just that my camera, I had solving disabled so that the camera wouldn't solve anymore as I was solving the ball. So I turned the camera back on. So when I solve, the points are always active, those lock points. But I just chose to push them back a little bit so that they would solve again. You don't really turn off those points. So let's pretend that's it. So let's see if I could just do a little bit of quick cleanup on this. I'm going to select the camera as a whole, move it up here. I lost my room because I modeled out the room and I hid the geometry, but now that I've rescaled the scene, my room geo that I had built doesn't match anymore, so I just don't care about it. So I don't know, I just put it somewhere at a reasonable spot. I could build out this room and then see the corners of the floor and stuff and position it on the ground. I don't want to though. Actually, you know what? I'll do it one more time. One more time. So here's my box, scale that up, and I'm going to go invert normals on the box so I could see the inside of the box. And now this box, I'm going to just move it back until it fits into the corners of the room. So I got to 2 corners here and I lined up the box to it. The floor, wow, I got very lucky with the floor. Okay, that got very lucky. That's actually, I was going to move the box up and down on the y-axis to get the floor to line up to the baseboard. Not to the baseboard, to the wall, because the baseboard sticks out a little bit. I fluked that off. So now the box here, it doesn't line up to our constrained points. We want this box to scale back, so I'm going to go turn the hole off, select the box, scale, and I'm going to turn on lock. And now scale it from the camera's perspective. And hold control so that your scaling is a little bit more fine. So there we go, we scaled it back to those points. Okay, so here's kind of a cool feature. I find a hard time to understand constrained in SYNTHEYES. Yeah, constrained, I actually did a pretty good explanation of that, I think, in this stream. I don't know if you were there for that part. But this stream, I think I did a kind of an interesting explanation on it. I gotta do a tutorial on just constraints. That's one of the tutorials I want to make soon. Just constraints and how locking stuff works. And it would also mean that I have to talk about seed. So seed and locking in SYNTHEYES for constraints. That'll probably be a tutorial sometime. Alright, so this sphere, if I want the whole room and the whole scene to like snap itself to the center, what's kind of cool is that the box has a pivot right at the bottom of it, always. So if I go just turn off that lock, and I'm just gonna, if you select your box, come up to script, make mesh the ground. So it moved the whole scene and it centered it all perfectly. The room is perfectly centered in the world. So I go F3, L, lock to camera. Wait, what? Ah. And if I hit G, oh. Where's my G plane? Oh, there it is, way at the bottom. Okay, well I thought we were gonna see that here. I'd have to go solver, drag the world size up to see our ground plane. And now it's being cut off by the... Oh, SYNTHEYES, you're fun. Anyway, that's kind of it. This is done. The ball. One thing I could do, smooth the ball, come out with the filter control, turn on distance, give it one apply. Oh, I'm under camera. Reset. Come over to object 1, filter control, distance, hit it, and now we've got a smooth object. Okay, Brian, very cool. Nice. I will watch it again. Seed is like survey point. Exactly. Seed, that's actually a good way to put it. Seed data is like survey data. It's position data. Seed is a term that is used in a lot of places in SYNTHEYES. All right. So that's about it. If there's any lingering questions, I'm gonna stop the stream. And it's sunny outside. I want to leave. So I'm just gonna give y'all a second if anybody has anything. As I check my phone. So my survey shots weren't needed at all. Oh yeah, your survey. You know what's funny, Brian? I actually have never opened up and looked at your survey images yet. Could I join Discord? I tried before. Jamal, can you see the Discord in the link on YouTube? It should be open. There should be a Discord link on YouTube. Okay. By the way, I wonder if I should show something extra. I'm thinking of something in my head right now. For anybody who cares, 1 second. So if you were to go and so let's say you took this camera outside of SYNTHEYES, took it to Blender, took it to Maya, Houdini, and then with this, and you took this plate, this undersorted plate, you saved your sequence out, and you're using this plate and the resolution in your 3D program. You render that out. Now you have your CG that is undistorted like this. So you want to redistort your CG. The image pre-processing in this, the lens master calibration, if you look in your project folder or wherever you're doing your work, you're going to have 2 maps. I have 4 because I did this a time earlier. But I made mine in EXR. You can use TIFF or whatever. I like EXRs. We use them at work. You have a redistort image, which I wish SYNTHEYES said, or undistort. I wish SYNTHEYES wrote undistort. And you have a redistort, which is actually labeled redistort. You can take this redistort into Nuke and Fusion or whatever, and you can apply this with an ST map node in Nuke, and your CG, it'll warp it. Yeah. So I don't know, that's a thing, but that's what you want to use. I'm not good enough at comp to be comfortable demonstrating that. I do it. I just don't know if it's the best way to do it. Jamal, were you able to make it? Let me put the link in here real quick. I've been pretty good about making sure that these links don't expire now, I believe. ST map. Oh. ST map to be re-undistorted? Yeah. Brian also works in After Effects with the plugin. I did it before with ST map. Nice. All right, so that's I think that's about it. I think we're good. So I am. Oh, looks like Jamal made it. Nice. Welcome to the Discord. I kind of wish people would use like the request tutorials. I kind of want the I kind of would like for if somebody had a problem, it would go here. Did people use the questions and help? Or did we only use it and then we went into general chat, I think, for the most part. Maybe I should just merge this. Maybe I should just get rid of question and help and just make it general chat. I probably should. I don't know what I was expecting with like just a separate general chat. Resources. I want to find more tracking stuff. I put a few things in here. Oh, if anyone wants to learn 3D equalizer, VFX Tutors, this channel's phenomenal. This is a lot of 3D and it's very well put together. Very, very clean stuff. I made it. Nice. Thank you. Brian, you can share the Dropbox link so people can follow along as well. Will that link last? Will that link stay there forever? Or for a while at least? Because I kind of don't want to put links to stuff that might expire. Just a little worried about that. Do you think that'll stay, Jamal? Or stay, Brian? Also, I don't have chat appearing on the stream this whole stream, do I? I don't. That's too bad. I'll have to fix that. Some of my things on Streamlabs cleared. I follow him, VFX Tutor, a lot of fun there. There is not a lot of tutorials. Not a lot to, but there is a lot to tutorials. Oh no. Oh, Shan Lee also joined? Cool. Okay, so that Dropbox link. Let's see if I can put it in the chat, in the YouTube. I'll see if I can update that later. Well, yeah, I'm kind of worried about links that potentially could not be around forever. So, yeah, I don't know, we'll see. About 3D Equalizer, about scripts. Ah, okay. Alright, I gotta go. There's stuff I want to do. I gotta go shop. I want to make myself soup. So, alright, thank you for watching. There was quite a few people today, so that was kind of cool. Alright. Cool. Thank you guys. Let's switch this over. I will see. Thanks a lot for all your effort. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for stopping by, Jamal. That's too bad you weren't able to be in from the start. Because yeah, I hope you enjoy watching it back if you do. Alright, see ya.